And still, we have a plastic dummy round. Nothing in the mag. Okay, so I just thought I'd throw this in here because, I mean, we're all friends here, and we all know each other, and all of us have an interest in firearms, as well as protecting ourselves and others. But not all of us might have the gadgets you see on this particular pistol. And I thought I would explain, why, if you're wondering if that's goofy or silly, or, he likes to throw his money away. The reason I have these other things on this pistol, not all of you know this, but I am part owner of a security and personal protection company, and I learned during some of our shoot house training in a dark shoot house just how important it is to have a source of light. That's also the case if if this is where it's not, but if it were my nightstand gun, you always want to have a white light with your nightstand gun, so you make sure you don't end up hurting somebody that you don't want to. Make sure it's an actual threat, not a family member or what have you. But that doesn't mean that these are necessary for like church defense, which is always taking place for the most part, except in the winter, I guess, in an evening service, always taking place in the daytime. I just don't take it off in order to use it for church. When I'm on a personal protection detail, I just use this as it is. You never know if you'll need light. But let's move to talk about the optic. Again, this is completely an optional thing. I like this pistol with its red dot on it because for my 50-plus-year-old eyes, acquiring the front sight isn't as easy as it used to be. The red dot optic is great for a person with my kind of eyes, my aged eyes, to pick up my sights immediately. It's good for that. It's worth it to me, even for just that purpose. But all the experts will tell you, for the most part, if they've had any exposure to the optics, that they're very good for shooting at distance. If you're up close and personal, it doesn't matter whether you have an optic or maybe even iron sights on your gun. You're probably just going to be drawing and shooting, in a personal defense situation with a mugger or something like that. You don't need all that. But if you've been shooting for a while and you know that it's harder to hit targets at distance with iron sights. It's harder to hit targets at distance with either because the target is smaller from your vantage point. But you'll notice if you ever fired iron sight pistols over against red dot pistols at the same target at 25 yards or 50 yards, how much easier it is to ring steel or hit your paper when you're using an optic. So at church, we have large parking lots. You can be finding yourself having to take a 50-yard shot. That's completely foreseeable. Statistically, most church shootings start in the parking lot. You can be at one end of a parking lot. You can be in front of the church and you see someone coming to church late, a family gets out of the car, and that's the moment when this terrible thing happens. Somebody steps out of a vehicle and either points a weapon at them or starts shooting at them. You need to take a long distance shot. And so the reason why I opt for this pistol for my church security work, or one of my other optic mounted pistols for that, is because of that consideration for a distance shot. So we're all going to be working on distance shots up to 50 yards because that can happen at church. All right, so that's why you'll see that on my gun. That helps me. Now, something I'd like to also discuss is what is the optimal kind of firearm to use on the security team at a church. I think that if you want my advice, I would say that a duty-sized gun is the ultimate choice, the best choice. And the reason for that is because you have to take those long-distance shots. You don't want a pocket pistol, which has, it has its uses, it has its applications, but church defense probably isn't one of them. One, scenario for church defense when it could be is, you're greeting the shooter at the front door. Then it doesn't really matter as long as you have a serviceable caliber. You're no worse off than a person with a duty-sized gun. But when you do have to send those rounds out downrange, and you go into 15, 25, and 50 yards. Having a full-size gun makes a difference. If all you have is iron sights, then having the longer barrel makes a difference, because the distance between the front sight post and the rear sights, the longer that slide is, the distance between those two, the better your accuracy is going to be. And another thing is, when you're handling a gun, it's easier to handle a full-size gun than a smaller gun. It's also easier to work all the controls. They're full size, they're more spread out. So if you're going to wear a compact gun at church, hopefully it's a serviceable caliber, 9mm or above. But I think the best prepared, best equipped members of the team will have the full-size guns. And you don't have to be as worried about printing at church. We don't care if you're printing. Everybody in the church understands, for the most part, that other people are wearing guns. So if you're wearing an overshirt over outside the waistband G45 like this, and people can say, hey, maybe he's wearing a gun, it's not going to be as culturally shocking inside our church as it might be somewhere else. And they know that we have security at our church. And so I would encourage you to carry a full-size gun. Or, this is like a hybrid. It's got a compact size barrel, 4-inch barrel. This is a Glock 19 size slide with a Glock 17 size lower, so that you get the 17 round mag, and you get that additional real estate down here to get your hands on and get a really good grip. And with a shorter slide, it's going to recoil and muzzle flip a lot less, because you really got a good grip. But any full-size gun is ideal. But if you're wearing a compact size, a shield or something like that, that's very doable as well. But again, you have to think about those distance shots. Are you going to be able to hit those distance shots like you would? Because we're not in competition with each other, we're in competition with ourselves. Are you going to be able to make that shot at distance, at 25, at 50 yards? At least 25. I mean, I've been training on 50 because of, those are the distances that we're dealing with in our parking lots, plus. So, can you hit those targets better than you could if you had a larger pistol? So that's why I have the pistol I do. Those are my thoughts. Take them or leave them as to what you would carry, because in our team, we're basically calculated self-defense. You make your own decisions about what you're carrying, as long as it's within the parameters of what's acceptable. The decision is yours. But I do think that a larger pistol that you can carry comfortably and competently is better off for church defense scenarios, which is a different animal from personal defense scenarios or even home defense. You usually don't have to, fire a round off at 50 yards potentially to defend your home. And if you're trying to defend yourself, in a parking lot from a mugger at 50 yards, then there's probably going to be some, the jury and the court's going to ask a lot of tough questions as to why you thought you were in danger at 50 yards. But if an active shooter comes on a church parking lot, that's something that you can see happening, is you having to shoot at 25, 50 yards. So practice that. Get out to the range and work progressively from, closer to farther distances out, to push out your competency to those ranges, so that you can be in a position to stop an active shooter. Something else to consider is that they often come with long guns, and we are hopelessly outgunned. Not only are we behind the 8-ball because reaction always is worse than action, and he's taking the action and we have to react to it. We see him step out with a long gun from outside of a van or a car, and he's 25 to 50 yards away from us. He's looking for trouble. He's got his long gun, and we're left trying to react to that. And as bad as all of that is, we have to be able to, with a handgun, put him down before he puts us down. And that requires training. It requires the right equipment, and you need to work at those distances. And those are some thoughts I had on this thing that we're doing in trying to protect the church, and what we should equip ourselves and how we should train ourselves up to be able to do that. You've got to remember, this is a very different animal than personal defense or home defense. All right. Thank you.